I'm going to do something that's necessary, which is to adjust the spine. I'll send you to a great nutritionist, a naturalist, who will teach you how to utilize raw foods and grains and so on that'll help this child. So that's what we did. We continued to work with Timmy, and he, in a matter of about 8 months, he started to walk quite normally, was functioning just like any other child. And the only difference that he had was a slight gait problem where he sort of drug his right foot. But within a year's time, even that cleared up. And so therefore, it was not because we were treating a so-called arthritis, or we were treating anything for that matter, that we were simply adjusting the spine. He was sent over to a woman who was an excellent naturalist who taught mother to feed the child something different than she had been feeding him. So beyond then putting in this live foods and this high energy foods and utilizing the intelligence that's already in that child, called innate, then innate was able to use the energy that was put in the child and rebuild the body. So we put that in a paper as a testimony because I thought it was interesting that other mothers and fathers should read this, the effects of these so-called inoculations. And as it ran, she called me one day and said, well, I can't bring my Timmy back into you again. And I said, why is that? She said, because my medical doctor called me and said, unless we retract that, we can't come see him anymore. So I said, well, that's probably the best news you ever got. Why be concerned about going back to see somebody who thinks that by the child becoming healthy once again is an evil thing and won't see you? I would suggest that you simply can that guy and don't bother using medical doctors for anything other than a first aid. If you want to regain your health, then go to somebody like the person that I sent you to that'll teach you how to eat, and then come to me or a chiropractor that's going to correct the subluxations to give you, your family, and particularly Timmy, a chance to be able to perform the way he should be. So that was my other one. Now, I can tell you a third one.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife, about 1970, developed breast cancer, lung cancer, and uterine cancer. And she had a lot of pain in her hip, just right in her left hip. And I would adjust her, and that adjustment would hold maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and that was it. And she'd be down over the hill. We lived on a little 20 acres, and she was down over the hill, and I could hear her breathe from up the house. That's how loud her respirations were. So in adjusting her and so on, it just wasn't being corrected. So I sent her down with Jerry Klum, who happens to be the president of Life West, and he took her to his nutritionist. And what she ended up doing is living off of distilled water, 50% of her body weight in ounces of distilled water, that she drank copious amounts of juice, fruit juice, freshly juiced in a champion juicer, consumed that within 10 minutes, and then had large amounts of vegetable juice in the afternoon, consuming that right away, and then taking coffee enemas every night just before she went to bed. And what I noticed was that as she started to clean herself up, that the adjustments held longer and longer and longer and longer. And she ultimately went like 2 or 3 days, then she went for a week, and she went for 2 weeks, she went for a month, and then she ultimately went without any major subluxation for a 14-month period. And it was during that time that she healed up. She's cancer-free, has no cancer today, doesn't expect to have any. And it was as a result. Now, I don't consider that a miracle. I consider that just the way things are supposed to be. Because most certainly, if you put high-energy foods in the body for innate to use to rebuild you, then innate is always going to rebuild you normally, not abnormally. And so that's exactly what happened. So that's not a miracle. That's just what chiropractic does. And that's what, if you combine chiropractic and nutrition, which I don't do in my office, I only stick to chiropractic, but I certainly recommend people going to a good nutritionist who doesn't fill them full of pills and potions, but teaches them how to eat food that they should have in their body. That's the end of my story.
So now one last one. A beautiful one with a guy with a knee who's beating up his knee.
Well, I could do that.
Yeah,
That's a great one.
That's not really a miracle, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
It is because his behaviour changed.
Okay. All right. So I always handed out papers to people and said, don't talk to me. I would be, while you're talking to me about something that I don't want to talk about, I could be adjusting somebody. And I would give that to them so that they knew not to talk to me. But this woman one time, she said, Doc, can I talk to her? And I said, yes, what's going on? She said, well, my husband hit me last night. And I said, oh, wow. She said, yeah. And she weighed about, I would say, 95 pounds, soaking wet. And she said, he drinks a lot. My husband drinks, gets drunk almost every day. And he's been very mean. We've been married for 35 years. And my daughter wanted to have a little puppy, so we brought a puppy in the house. And he went over and said, I told you no animals in the house. And he reached over and crushed the puppy's head. And she said, I just don't know what to do. She said, I think it's because he has a lot of pain in his knee. His knee's all red and swollen, and he can't straighten his leg, and he has to walk around on his toe all the time. And I think that's aggravating him so that he's even worse than he's ever been. And she said, can you help him? And I said, well, I really don't know. Where is he? He's out in the truck. I said, well, tell him to come in. So he came in, and I had an old Victorian house, and I could hear the thump, thump, thump as he walked across the porch. And when he came in, I saw that he weighed probably 350 pounds, a huge man. He was a pig farmer, and he smelled like that. And he came in and sat down on the table, and he said, I'm going to give you a try. And I said, well, I'm not on trial. You are, because I don't even know if I want you in here. And so we started to talk a little bit, and I told him what I wanted done. And either you do what I tell you to do, or just go out the door. It really doesn't make any difference to me. So we x-rayed him. We x-rayed his neck, and he couldn't understand why I was x-raying his neck when it was his knee. I didn't bother to tell him. I didn't like him anyway. So we went ahead and worked with him, and I will say this, for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months, he came in just like he should. He was very good about being there and doing what he needed to do. And it was an amazing thing, because his wife came in, she said, Doc, what did you do to my husband? I said, did he die? And she said, no. She said, he kissed me last night for the first time. Good night. I get a little emotional about this. And he's been taking our daughter and sitting her on his knee and reading bedtime stories to her. She said, I don't know what's happened to him. He's never kissed me in all these years. And he stopped drinking. And I said, wow. He said, where is he? Well, he's out in the truck with my daughter. I said, well, tell him to come in. So he came in, and I heard the same thump, 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 as he came in walking on his toe. He came in and sat down, and I would tell you that his knee was maybe a little worse than it was the first time I saw it. It didn't get a bit better, not at all. But he stopped drinking. He kissed his wife. He bought a rabbit. He let his little daughter have a rabbit hopping around in the house. And wherein before he wouldn't allow animals in the house. And he was reading to her every night. And the big thing was, he kissed his wife. Good night. So the man completely changed. Now, did his knee get any better? No. Did anything good happen? I would say. His whole personality changed. And he stopped drinking. So you can call that a miracle if you wish, but that's just a typical occurrence when we have something that is supposed to happen. As E.D. Palmer once said, the whole purpose of chiropractic is to rack the skeletal system to unite man the physical with man the spiritual. So if the spirit is running the show, then things work